Hello, dear viewers. Today we will discuss a serious stage in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, where geopolitics, security, and energy have once again become intertwined in the most acute way. We will discuss the large-scale attacks on the Ukrainian energy system, the escalation of the diplomatic front, and how all of this is affecting the situation within Russia and on the international stage. Over the next 14 minutes, we will delve into what happened, why it matters, and what you can expect next. So let's move on to the context. To understand what's happening, we need to go back to the roots of the conflict. The confrontation between Russia and Ukraine, which re-escalated in February 2022, has a long and complex history. Following the annexation of Crimea and the hostilities in eastern Ukraine, Moscow stated that it was defending its interests and the Russian-speaking population, while Kyiv and its Western allies insisted on restoring the country's territorial integrity. Since then, the front line has stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Eastern Ukraine remains the area of the most intense fighting, particularly in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. In recent weeks, the situation there has worsened again. Russian forces are advancing in the Pokrovsk area, which is considered a strategically important hub. Simultaneously, Russia is intensifying its pressure on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, striking substations and thermal power plants. This causes disruptions to electricity, heating, and water supply, especially on the eve of the winter season. Ukrainian authorities claim the strikes are aimed at undermining the country's resilience. At the diplomatic level, Russia is insisting on the recognition of its legitimate interests, Ukraine's neutral status, and its refusal to join NATO. Kyiv, on the other hand, states that such conditions are unacceptable, and the West continues to provide it with military and financial support. All of this creates a complex backdrop for current events. Now, for the latest news, Russian military officials have announced advances in eastern Ukraine and the capture of several settlements in the Donetsk region. At the same time, Ukraine was subjected to one of the most large-scale air attacks in recent months. Hundreds of drones and dozens of cruise missiles were launched into Ukrainian territory. The strikes hit energy facilities, including substations that ensure the operation of large nuclear power plants. Kyiv stated that such actions pose a threat to the nuclear safety of all of Europe. Moscow, for its part, claims that the strikes targeted military facilities and logistics hubs through which, according to its information, supplies are being delivered to Ukrainian troops. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reiterated that Russia is ready for negotiations with the United States and Western countries, but only on the condition that Moscow's interests are taken into account. Russian President's spokesman Dmitry Peskov also emphasized that Russia is not abandoning peaceful dialogue, but accused Kyiv of the negotiation process reaching a dead end. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials say no real compromise proposals have been received from Russia. Experts are analyzing what's happening from different perspectives. Russian analysts note that Moscow is using its advantage in resources and technology, aiming to weaken Ukraine's economic potential and hinder its preparations for winter. They believe that strikes against the energy sector are part of a long-term strategy aimed at reducing the enemy's combat capability. Ukrainian and Western experts, on the other hand, see this as an attempt to exert psychological pressure and force the population to face humanitarian difficulties. European observers are expressing concern. Strikes on nuclear facilities could lead to unpredictable consequences. Some analysts note that the risk of accidents or outages at such facilities is extremely high, and the consequences could extend far beyond the region. In diplomatic circles, experts are paying attention to Lavrov's statements, viewing them as an attempt to demonstrate an open willingness to negotiate in the wake of military successes. However, most believe that real negotiations are impossible without both sides changing their positions. The Russian side insists on the recognition of the new territorial realities, while Kyiv and its partners are demanding a complete withdrawal of troops and the restoration of pre-war borders. Why is this important for Russia and for the world? Firstly, strikes against energy infrastructure are exacerbating the humanitarian crisis, especially during the winter period, which could shift the balance of public opinion within Ukraine itself. Secondly, the ongoing offensive in the east could become a significant stage in Russia's strategic plans, allowing it to consolidate control over key communications and industrial areas. Thirdly, the risks associated with the safety of nuclear facilities are causing concern in Europe, where there are increasingly calls for the creation of international control mechanisms. Fourthly, diplomatic stagnation is exacerbating global tensions. Sanctions against Russia remain in effect, and economic pressure on both sides is only increasing. For Moscow, this is a test of strength, both militarily and financially. In conclusion, it can be said that this week once again highlighted that the conflict is far from over. Military actions on the front are accompanied by diplomatic maneuvers and strikes on infrastructure, and the parties remain far from a compromise. The international community is calling for de-escalation, but no practical steps have been taken yet. Time will tell how events will unfold. We continue to monitor the situation. Thank you for your attention.